And the Grammy goes to Bad Bunny,
In 2022, an album called Un Verano Sin Ti became the most streamed album of the year on Spotify. It beat Taylor Swift, it beat Harry Styles, it beat Drake. It became the most streamed album of all time on the platform, a record it still holds today. The artist behind it had never released a song in English. He recorded almost his entire career in a language that 75% of the world doesn't speak. His name is Bad Bunny, and in 2025, he became the first artist in Spotify's history to top the global charts 4 separate years: 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2025. Over 19 billion streams in a single year, 97.8 million monthly listeners, a Super Bowl halftime show that triggered a 470% spike in his streams overnight. So how did a Puerto Rican kid working at a grocery store in Vega Baja, recording songs in Spanish on a free SoundCloud account, become the most streamed musician on earth without doing the one thing every American label said he had to do, which was sing in English? In 2014, Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio was 20 years old. He worked the bagging line at a Supermax grocery store in Vega Baja, a small coastal town on the northern edge of Puerto Rico. In his off hours, he recorded songs on his phone and uploaded them to SoundCloud for free. He was studying audiovisual communication at the University of Puerto Rico in Arecibo, but music was the side hustle he couldn't quit. The songs were strange. They were slower than reggaeton, darker than pop. He sang and rapped in Spanish, but he wasn't doing what other Spanish language artists were doing. He wasn't trying to make crossover hits. He wasn't writing English bridges. He was writing for one audience: the kids in his neighborhood. In 2016, a track called Dials went viral on SoundCloud. It hit hundreds of thousands of plays from a kid nobody had heard of. Around that same time, a Puerto Rican manager named Noah Assad started paying attention. Assad was 25 years old. He had been working in Latin music management for a few years, and he saw something in this grocery store kid that the major labels had completely missed. Assad signed Bad Bunny to a small independent label called Rimas Entertainment. Now, here's a piece of the music business most coverage of Bad Bunny skips entirely. Rimas wasn't a real label at the time. It was a tiny operation founded in... Now, I know what you're thinking. Surely Spanish language music has always been popular. Reggaeton existed, Daddy Yankee had hits, Shakira sold albums. So what changed? I dug into Spotify's listener data from 2017 to 2024 to figure this out, and the answer is one of those numbers that once you see it, you can't unsee. Here's what the data shows. When Spotify launched in 2008, the platform was built for English-speaking markets. The recommendation algorithms, the playlist editors, the marketing partnerships, all of it was designed around the assumption that the biggest music market in the world spoke English. Latin music was a category, a small one. By 2024, Latin music had become the 3rd most streamed genre globally. Música Mexicana alone became the #1 Latin genre in the US, dominating in 26 states. In 2025, 2 Latin acts, Bad Bunny and Fuerza Regida, appeared in Spotify's global top artists list in the same year, the first time that had ever happened. What changed wasn't the music, it was the platform. Streaming destroyed the language barrier that radio had but here's the deeper structural shift. Spotify and the streaming services that followed it gave Latin music something it had never had before in the United States: equal shelf space. On a Spotify Today's Top Hits playlist, a Bad Bunny track sits next to a Taylor Swift track, sits next to a Drake track. Same playlist, same audience. No language gatekeeper deciding which one gets played. That single change, the death of the radio gatekeeper, opened the door for everything that came next. Bad Bunny just happened to be the artist standing closest to the door when it opened, and his label, Rimas, happened to be running a business model designed to take maximum advantage of that opening. Here's what Rimas understood that the major labels missed. In a streaming-first world, the artist doesn't need a major label. They need 3 things: distribution, brand equity, and patience. Distribution is the cheapest part of the chain in the streaming era because services like The Orchard will distribute your music globally for a small percentage. Brand equity comes from the artist's relationship with their audience, not the label's marketing budget. And patience means you don't sign deals that give up your masters for a quick advance. Rimas signed Bad Bunny to a deal that kept his masters. They distributed his music through The Orchard, Sony's independent distribution arm. which gave him global reach without giving up ownership, and they built his career one Spanish language album at a time without ever crossing him over to English. That decision, to never force the English crossover, turned out to be the single most valuable strategic choice his team ever made. This is where I think most music industry executives still don't understand what Bad Bunny actually proved. The conventional wisdom for decades was simple. If you want to be a global superstar from Latin America, you have to record in English. Shakira did it. Ricky Martin did it. Enrique Iglesias did it. Even Jennifer Lopez did it, despite being from the Bronx. The logic was, English is the language of global commerce. American radio is the gateway to international fame. If you don't sing in English, you're capped at being a regional star. You can sell out arenas in Latin America, but you'll never headline Madison Square Garden. Bad Bunny rejected that math entirely, and he did it with a deeper financial argument that almost nobody talks about. When a Latin artist crosses over to English, they have to share their songwriting credits with English-speaking co-writers, share their production credits with American producers, and split their publishing royalties with the major label that funded the crossover. By the time the crossover album drops, the artist often owns less than 30% of the upside on their own music. By staying entirely in Spanish, Bad Bunny kept almost all of his publishing. He kept his masters. He kept his image rights. And every time one of his songs streamed, he and Rimas kept a much larger share of the revenue than a major label crossover artist would have. That math compounds aggressively. When Un Verano Sin Ti became the most streamed album of all time, the streaming royalties flowing back to Bad Bunny and Rimas were unmistakably bigger than what Shakira earned per stream when she crossed over with Hips Don't Lie in 2006. But the real punchline is what happened to Rimas itself. In 2023, Sony Music Corp paid an estimated $100 million to acquire roughly 30% of Rimas Entertainment. The deal valued the company at over $300 million. According to Billboard, Sony's investment was structured specifically to help Noah Assad and Bad Bunny buy out the original founder, Rafael Jimenez Dan, and take majority control of the company. Think about what that means. Bad Bunny didn't just become a global music star, he became a co-owner of the label that signed him, the same label that in 2014 was a $2 million startup with one bag boy from Vega Baja on its roster. In 2025, Rimas acquired a controlling stake in Dale Play Records, the Argentine label home to Bizarrap. Rimas is now operating across Puerto Rico, the US, Mexico, Spain, Argentina, and Uruguay. It's the #1 independent label on Billboard's 2024 year-end chart, and the Bad Bunny streaming engine is still feeding it. I want to put this in context because it's worth understanding how rare this outcome actually is. Drake, Beyonce, and Taylor Swift all have major label distribution. Drake is on Universal, Beyonce is on Sony Columbia, Taylor Swift signed with Republic after leaving Big Machine. Each of them has incredible deals, but each of them is still functionally a partner with a major label that owns or co-owns large parts of their catalog. Bad Bunny is the only artist of his commercial scale who built his entire empire inside an independent label that he himself ended up co-owning. The Rimas Sony deal is technically a minority, but here's where I think the celebration of Bad Bunny needs a serious caveat. The empire he built is more dependent on one thing than most fans realize, and that one thing is him. Rimas Entertainment is a $300 million company. The Dale Play acquisition expanded its global footprint. The Sony partnership gave it institutional backing, but the engine that drives all of it is Bad Bunny himself. When Spotify Wrapped 2025 dropped, Rimas' strongest asset was a single artist who is now 31 years old, has hinted multiple times that he wants to retire from music to focus on acting, and has already taken extended breaks from releasing albums. If Bad Bunny stops recording for 3 years, the way Rihanna stopped recording after 2016, what happens to Rimas? The catalog continues to stream? Yes. The other artists on the roster continue to release, but the valuation that Sony paid for in 2023 was built on Bad Bunny's continued cultural dominance. If that dominance fades, the asset gets repriced. There's also the language question, which cuts both ways. Bad Bunny proved that you can be a global superstar without singing in English, but the next generation of Latin artists is even less interested in crossing over than he was. Música Mexicana, Corridos, Banda, Regional Mexican is now bigger in the US streaming market than Reggaeton, Fuerza Regida, Peso Pluma, Junior H. These artists never even pretended to court English language audiences. They didn't need to, which means the playbook Bad Bunny invented is being run faster by younger artists in genres where his style of urban reggaeton doesn't compete. So here's my prediction for 2027 and beyond. I think we're gonna see Bad Bunny do one of two things. Option 1, he negotiates a full Sony buyout of Rima's, takes a 9-figure exit, and pivots primarily into film, television, and WWE-style entertainment ventures. He's already been hinting at this publicly for 2 years. Option 2, he uses the Rima's platform to acquire smaller Latin labels across Latin America, building Rima's into the first true non-English language major label of the streaming era. The Dale Play acquisition was the first move in that direction. There will be more. If I had to bet, I'd lean toward option 2, because the math on staying inside Latin music and consolidating the category is better than the math on selling out and starting over in Hollywood. So here's what Bad Bunny actually proved. Not that Spanish music can compete with English music. Anyone who has spent time on TikTok already knew that. He proved something deeper and harder. He proved that the language barrier in global pop was never about language. It was about distribution, about who controlled the gatekeepers, about who decided which song got onto which playlist, which radio station, which late night show. When the gatekeepers got replaced by algorithms, the language barrier collapsed almost overnight. The only artists who saw it coming early enough to capitalize were the ones who refused to play by the old rules. Bad Bunny refused. He stayed in Spanish. He stayed independent. He bought the label that signed him, and he became the most streamed artist in human history while doing all three. Most artists chase the system. He bought it. My bet is the next 10 years of music history are going to be written in his language, not the other way around. In 2022, an album called Un Verano Sin Ti became the most streamed album of the year on Spotify. It beat Taylor Swift, it beat Harry Styles, it beat Drake. It became the most streamed album of all time on the platform, a record it still holds today. The artist behind it had never released a song in English. He recorded almost his entire career in a language that 75% of the world doesn't speak. His name is Bad Bunny, and in 2025, he became the first artist in Spotify's history to top the global charts 4 separate years: 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2025. Over 19 billion streams in a single year, 97.8 million monthly listeners, a Super Bowl halftime show that triggered a 470% spike in his streams overnight. So how did a Puerto Rican kid working at a grocery store in Vega Baja, recording songs in Spanish on a free SoundCloud account, become the most streamed musician on earth without doing the one thing every American label said he had to do, which was sing in English?